The sermon this morning is a joint effort between Reverend Geraldine Amaral Hodson and myself. The scripture reading today is from Hinduism, Bhagavad Gita 6.6-5. Man should discover his own reality and not thwart himself, for he has himself as his only friend or as his only enemy. A person has the self as a friend when he has conquered himself. But if he rejects his own reality, the self will war against him. So ends the reading. The sermon today is titled, It Is What It Is. It seems like recently I've been seeing and hearing this phrase a lot. Bumper stickers, little plaques that you can hang on your wall, even a bracelet that has this saying inscribed on it. And I hear people use it in different contexts with different meanings. On one level, it is an expression that is meant to help us deal with and accept situations that are difficult, painful, or a situation that we believe cannot be changed and must just be accepted. Yet, I suppose that every cliche of this sort has a grain of wisdom in it. The intention today is to explore a deeper metaphysical meaning behind this cliche, to expand upon the truth that is implied by this phrase. Yes, it is a simple phrase, but what lies beneath it can be quite significant. On a metaphysical or spiritual level, this saying refers to seeing things as they are, without the overlays of our own preferences, stories, or interpretations about them. Things are what they are, and it is we who ascribe the meaning to events and situations based on our own views. This saying is a way to remind us that our perceptions, our understanding of reality, is colored by our own consciousness, our life experiences, childhood training, cultural conditioning, and so forth. Another way to express this idea is thoughts are not facts. Or as the Course in Miracles states, I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. Being able to accept it is what it is a way of observing things as they are without evaluating or analyzing them. Here is a factual account that illustrates this point. This is an actual transcript of a U.S. naval ship and Canadian authorities off the coast of Newfoundland in October 1995. This radio conversation was released by the Chief of Naval Operations on October 10, 1995. Here's the actual transcript, starting with the American naval ship speaking. The Americans. Please divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid a collision. Canadians reply, recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid a collision. This is the captain of a U.S. Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. No, I say again, you divert your course. This is the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, the second largest ship in the United States Atlantic Fleet. We are accompanied by 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support vessels. I demand that you change your course 15 degrees north. That's 15 degrees north, or countermeasures will be undertaken to ensure the safety of this ship. The Canadians. This is a lighthouse. Your call. This account is both humorous, instructive, and the consequences could have been disastrous. It shows how the captain's assumed, conditioned, and preconceived perceptions colored the way he understood the directions to change his course. How many times have we refused to change our course in life because of some conditioned, erroneous, and preconceived notion? How many times have we gone down the same rabbit hole, prejudging a situation or person based on our own conditioning and bias? Like the Navy captain, there are times that we misinterpret our experiences. We might assume that the friend who fails to call us back is rejecting us, or that the driver who cuts us off on the freeway has it in for us, or that some situation in the future is going to be a disaster. These are the thoughts, the interpretations, and the stories that we tell ourselves. There are the big stories of how our lives came to be as they are. There are also the little stories that we make up every day as we interpret and try to rationalize the events in our lives. Mostly, these interpretations are the results of our conditioning and of our subconscious minds. Misinterpreting events can lead to unnecessary stress, suffering, and dire consequences. The conditioned mind can run and ruin our lives. It is the opposite of the Buddhist concept of the beginner's mind, which is a state of mind or being in which we have no preconceived notions about what is transpiring and what it means. Sometimes we get stuck in a certain story and it becomes a lifelong story. This lifelong story is filled with our interpretation of what happened in our relationships or our interpretation of the various events of our lives, our childhood experiences. All the experiences that have helped shape who we think we are and what we believe to be true about the world. It is what it is. Reminds us about this conditioned interpretation. Pain, grief, sadness, and many other emotions are mandatory in our lives. We lose loved ones. Expectations go unfulfilled. There are cruel people in the world. Pain is mandatory. Suffering is a choice. Suffering results from our continued dwelling on past events. Suffering results from our inability to accept what happened and move on. Learning to accept what happened and learning to forgive allows us to release the pain of past experiences and live in the present. We forgive people for our own peace of mind. Forgiving someone does not mean we need to let them back into our lives. We forgive someone for being human, for making a mistake and making a bad decision. Once we can really forgive, we can move on without the emotional baggage from a past event. We all have personalities that were formed by our experience. We all have habitual reactions to certain situations. When acting habitually, we are not in the present making our own decisions. We can see this clearly in family dynamics that never seem to change or improve. Most of our thoughts are repetitive. We usually are not even aware of the constant stream of repetitive thoughts, repetitive actions, and the resulting emotions. We have heard the term monkey mind, referring to the endless stream of thoughts that we have in a day. On average, human beings produce about 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. No wonder we can be exhausted by our thoughts, by our judgments and our interpretations of what things mean. A large percentage of those thoughts are non-productive and repetitive and can be based on fear, shame, or many other emotions. We ruminate about our past mistakes, and we feel anxious about what the future holds. We can rehash past events, complaining, fault finding, or as Reverend Geraldine's friend Eileen likes to say, horribilizing. Horribilizing about what has or could happen. That's a great word, horribilizing. This constant chatter in our heads, the monkey mind, becomes a normal everyday habit, which can create and reinforce negative, non-productive, habitual thinking. Conditioning and automatic responses are so ingrained in us that we are not even aware of them. How can we learn to disconnect from our habitual reactions and interpretations of life experiences? There is a way to recognize and change the habitual thoughts that we tell ourselves, especially the ones that bring suffering with them. We can do this by bringing awareness to and observing our thoughts. It doesn't matter who the people were in our story or what they have done or what we have done. You are the only one who can give the events in your life the meaning they have for you. You have placed the meaning on your various life experiences. Many of the interpretations of events and the emotions you still feel surrounding them are subconscious. When we learn, we can decide how to interpret what has happened in our lives and we are free to rationalize a different meaning or to assign no meaning at all to a situation. We can begin to change our habitual thinking. This in turn can alter our emotional reactions. An easy example is a driver getting mad at us in traffic. We can learn to just observe their behavior and let it go with no emotion. That driver's frustration or anger really should not affect us at all. One of the most common tools for working on our habitual, non-productive thoughts is meditation. The phrase, "it is what it is," really highlights a reason that we meditate. Meditation is an attempt to train our minds to watch and observe our thoughts and experiences without ascribing meaning. Deferring to "it is what it is," like meditation, can act as a tool to calm ourselves. This is not a sermon about why you should meditate. The purpose of the sermon is to become aware of your own narratives or interpretations and to learn to separate the narrative from the situation. We can ask ourselves, how much of this narrative is my own creation? As an observer, we can decide which of our emotions, thoughts, and actions are productive and which are non-productive. To review for a moment, many of our thoughts and actions arise from our conditioning, our personal stories, our baggage, and habitual patterns. We operate from this mental conditioning. Learning to slow down and observe allows us to discover something within ourselves that is deeper, not conditioned, beyond the usual knee-jerk reaction. We can teach ourselves how to observe. We can teach ourselves how to look at life without the subconscious interpretation. We can also become more conscious and aware when we are reacting irrationally. The more you practice, the more this retraining of the mind will transfer to your everyday life. The goal is to learn to navigate the human experience from the highest level of consciousness available to us. Jesus understood that we are first and foremost spiritual beings. He tells us this when he says, "The Father and I are one." This is the Christ consciousness that is dormant within ourselves. Thus, we sometimes describe our spirituality as the movement from human consciousness with all its conditioning to Christ consciousness. We are here to wake up that dormant awareness. And we do that by learning to watch our own thoughts and reactions. The divine exists everywhere and can be accessed anywhere. The path within is where our divinity is most accessible. And it is our conditioning that blocks us from accessing that divine energy. The Indian guru, Ramana Maharshi, tells us that we can gauge our spiritual progress by the degree of freedom we experience from our thoughts. How often can you just enjoy nature or music or listen to a friend and have no interrupting thoughts? Here are 3 exercises that you can use to begin recognizing non-productive patterns. Number 1, observe your own reactivity level. How calmly do you meet challenges and problems in your life? The Course in Miracles says, "I am never upset for the reason I think." I am never upset for the reason I think. Pay attention to thoughts like, "This is horrible. What a catastrophe. Why am I such a loser?" These are interpretations or stories we might habitually repeat in situations that we can handle. Practice observing your reactions in traffic, with your family, and in stressful situations. Begin to make a shift to being an open-minded witness, a curious witness of your life events. You can begin right now by gently and lovingly observe your reactions. Notice yourself ascribing meaning and reacting out of a conditioned response. Such observation will enable you to move from the unconscious habitual state to a conscious state in which you make decisions based on the present situation. A second way to check your progress is to note where in your daily life you experience presence. It may take the form of a regular meditation practice, or it may simply be taking a few moments during the course of a day to stop, breathe, and observe. We all have time for one conscious breath. This is not a structured meditation session. It is an informal practice to be used anytime during the day. By taking one conscious breath, it brings some space into your situation. You disconnect from the labels and the story. Look around you without labeling. See what happens to your experience when you are the observer. A third way is to practice self compassion. Pray and meditate on loving and accepting yourself just as you are at this moment. Experience being just in one moment with no past and no future. Self compassion. You can be your own friend or you can be your own enemy. It is your choice. Both options take the same amount of effort. You won't change in one day your way of thinking or your way of being that has developed over a lifetime. But with practice, you can learn to be more present and observe your thoughts and actions. Observing yourself, you can decide which thoughts and actions are non-productive. It is what it is. It can be a cliche. But when you consider the lighthouse and the captain's conditioned interpretation that it was another ship signaling him, we can understand that it is very easy to miss what is really happening right in front of us. Bless you.